Welcome back to America's Now. I'm Elaine Reyes. In every continent, there are cultures struggling to survive. The story of the Garifuna people of Central America begins in Africa with a ship full of prisoners destined for slavery in the Americas. Shipwrecked by a Caribbean storm, the survivors made it to a nearby island. They intermarried with indigenous Arawak and Carib people to form a unique culture. Now it's being threatened by poverty and migration to countries like the United States. Most young Garifuna no longer speak their language, bringing it close to extinction. America's Now contributing correspondent Franc Contreras recently traveled to Belize, where musicians are determined to keep the Garifuna culture alive.
The Garifuna people always look to the Caribbean Sea. It's where their culture began. They perform this ritual every November, remembering how their West African ancestors arrived in the Americas aboard slave ships more than 2 centuries ago.
Let's go.
A shipwreck led them to freedom on the Caribbean island of St. Vincent. There, they intermarried with indigenous people, and the Garifuna culture was born. But it was a painful birth. Cast out from the island by the British, they were a people without a home, until one day, they finally arrived here.
This is the most important moment for the Garifuna people all year long. They're reenacting that historic, solemn, and spiritual moment when their people came ashore here in Central America.
The annual Landing Day ceremony kicks off days of celebration of Garifuna heritage. It's a unique hybrid culture, blending influences from Africa, Europe, and Latin America into every part of life. Like religion at this Catholic Mass held in the Garifuna language. Garifuna families still prepare their staple cassava bread in the same way their ancestors did centuries ago. But it's through music that Garifuna culture really shines. Based on the drum, Garifuna traditional music and dance is a source of great pride here in Dangriga, especially around the time of the November celebrations. However, all of this, many fear, is under threat. About 600,000 Garifuna people now live in Central America, mostly on the Caribbean coasts of Belize, Guatemala, and Honduras. They once lived from farming and fishing, but poverty has led to mass migration to the United States. And now many Garifuna families survive on money sent home from relatives. Along with money from abroad come new influences. Thanks partly to mass media, young Garifuna today are more worldly than their parents and grandparents, drawn in particular to black youth culture of the United States and larger Caribbean nations like Jamaica. Few speak the Garifuna tongue, leading many to fear the culture could soon die out altogether. But in Dangriga, there are a handful of people who say they'll never let that happen. One of them is Adrian Doc Martinez, among the most famous living composers and singers of Garifuna music. At the school where he teaches math and music, his students are learning to sing in the Garifuna language, and he uses every opportunity he can to get them excited about their heritage.
You're doing well. You just need now to be more aggressive with your singing, be more brave, don't shy away, sing from within and push out that sound.
And be proud of the music.
That's right, be proud of you and be proud of what you're doing. You know, show that you love what you're doing through music. All right.
Martinez takes me to see the music school he's building next door to his house. He wants it to specialize in teaching children to sing and play Garifuna music.
Look at this, wow. It's beautiful, look at that.
This is a dream of mine from when I started getting into music.
The style Martinez plays is known as paranda. It developed soon after the Garifuna's arrival in Central America. This song Baba is one of his own compositions. He has played it on tour to audiences all around the world, and it's one of the most popular Garifuna songs of all time. For Martinez, music is the great communicator, and he knows it can be used to save this culture.
You need to allow it to reach to your soul. That is how you can bring out the essence of the culture.
But people like Martinez, who are fighting to keep the culture alive, have a difficult task ahead. Young Garifunas, like 24-year-old Ashanti Castillo, who works in this Tangriga tourist resort, might be proud of their heritage, but they experience very little of it in their daily lives. After work, she gives us a tour of her neighborhood.
This is where I live.
She lives with her boyfriend, Ethan, an unemployed reggae fan who she refers to as her gentleman.
I don't know how to hold a rabbit. Maybe it's okay if you just do it.
You're afraid.
I'm afraid of rabbits.
Although she does not live a traditional Garifuna lifestyle, she says she's proud of who she is.
I consider myself a Garifuna woman, and I'm proud of being a Garifuna, and if anyone asks me if I am a Garifuna, I will proudly say, yes, I am a Garifuna. I don't speak Garifuna because my father, well, he was ashamed of his language, so he didn't want my mother to teach me, although he himself knew Garifuna, and my mother knew Garifuna, but he didn't want us to learn. He said it was a shame.
We weren't able to talk with her father, but many older people here told us they used to feel ashamed to be called Garifuna. They wanted to fit in and worried that speaking a strange language would only get in the way. Ashanti takes us to meet her mother, Mercy, who makes traditional dolls she sells to tourists. Her mother is proud of her Garifuna roots and wants Ashanti to embrace them more, but knows that in a modern world it's not easy. In Ashanti's family, as with many here, the link to Garifuna culture becomes weaker with every new generation.
Here, it's only the older people that is keeping up Garifuna. And as time goes by one, they are going, and the Garifuna is going along. The culture is going.
Generations of Garifuna children were punished if they even spoke their language at school. Only English, the colonial language of Belize, was allowed. That led many Garifuna to feel embarrassed about their culture from an early age.
To help reverse that trend, the school's been opened up to teach these children the Garifuna language of their ancestors.
I want to go to school. How will I say that? Very good.
The National Garifuna Council opened the Gulisi School with the goal of teaching children, including Creole and Spanish speakers, the Garifuna language.
By knowing their language, by learning their language, they are going to know who they are, and they will take their place in this country, Belize, because all of us need to know who we are.
Remembering their ancestors' struggle to stay alive under extreme, adverse conditions still inspires today's Garifuna. And leading Garifuna musicians like Adrian Doc Martinez say they'll keep doing their part to show young people what's at stake.
I start to understand and cry out more for my people, especially those who are not seeing what is happening. So that is what I lived by, that is what I hold on to, that is what I encourage other young Garifuna like myself to hold on to and to keep faith in what our ancestors have done, and that we can do the same so that this culture can live.
They know that if they do not continue taking steps to save this culture, its language and music could be lost forever.
Our thanks to Franc Contreras reporting from Tangriga, Belize. Some 6,000 languages are spoken around the world, but sadly every year the world loses 25 of them. In 2001, the United Nations proclaimed the Garifuna language, music, and dance among the masterpieces of the oral, intangible heritage of humanity. That brings us to the conclusion of our broadcast this week. You can find us on the web at cctv-america.com. And you can also find us on Facebook at cctvamerica.com. Please join us again next week for another edition of America's Now. See you then.